Hello there. Welcome to my class. My name is Marcio de Paula, and I will be your instructor for today's lesson. Today we will be talking about QuickBooks Desktop 2020 Chapter 4. Tracking expenses properly is very important for your financial statements as well as for keeping your vendors happy. A vendor is essentially anyone to whom you pay money, excluding employees. A vendor could be the electric company, the organization to which you pay taxes, a merchandise supplier, or subcontractors you pay to do work for you or your customers. QuickBooks allows you to produce 1099 tax forms for subcontractors at the end of the year. In this chapter, you will examine the QuickBooks lists, activities, and reports that allow you to effectively deal with vendors. By the end of this chapter, you will be able to identify features of the vendor center and vendor list, enter and pay bills, write and print checks, correct errors in vendor transactions, produce vendor and profit and loss reports. Let's get started. Now that you've set up Jimmy's customers and entered the transactions related to them, it's time to set up the vendor list so you can enter transactions to track expenses. These transactions include entering and paying bills and writing checks. You will also produce reports that will provide relevant vendor information for Jimmy as well as a profit and loss report. The Vendor Center. You can access the vendor list and activities, entering and paying bills, from the Vendor Center. When you select a vendor from the Vendor Center, it provides an all-in-one look at that vendor's information, bills, and payments. The Vendor List. An integrated part of the Vendor Center, the vendor list contains list entries that are used in various forms and reports. Each vendor's record in the list is organized into 5 tabs: Address Info, Payment Settings, Tax Settings, Account Settings, and Additional Info, where you can create custom fields to store additional data. This list can even be exported to contact management software such as Microsoft Outlook. Creating and editing vendors. New vendors are created from the Vendor Center or on the fly when you're entering them on a bill or check. Keep in mind that the more information you enter for each vendor, the better your customized reports will be because you can group, sort, and filter your reports using information pulled from the vendor records. Once created, a vendor can always be edited through the Vendor Center. The only item that can't be edited after you've created and saved a new vendor is the opening balance. It must be adjusted through the accounts payable register. When you change the information for a vendor, including the vendor's name, it will be reflected in both future and past transactions. Deleting or making a vendor inactive. You can delete a vendor from the vendor list as long as you haven't used it in a transaction. If you have used it in a transaction, you can make it inactive, but you can't delete it until after you close the books for a period. After making it inactive, you can reactivate it if you find you need it again. Setting up default expense accounts for a vendor. In QuickBooks, when you add a new vendor, you have the option to associate up to 3 expense accounts with that vendor. These accounts will automatically fill in when you enter a bill for this vendor. By setting up expense account information to be pre-filled, tracking expenses is easier and faster. Once set up, when that vendor is entered in the Enter Bills, Write Checks, or Enter Credit Card Charges windows, QuickBooks will automatically fill in the expense account names for you. You can always choose to override the default accounts that are filled in by changing them in the individual transaction window. If there are fewer than 3 expense accounts for a vendor, just leave the additional account pre-fill fields blank. Vendors versus employees. It's important to understand the difference between vendors and employees. Even though you pay money to employees, which is the basic definition of a vendor, you set up employees in the employee list, as the information you must track and the records you must keep when dealing with payroll are of utmost importance. On the other hand, you set up subcontractors or independent contractors as vendors, not employees. The laws that govern these non-employee relationships can be complex and change with new legislation, so make sure you know the laws for your jurisdiction. Merge duplicate list entries. Occasionally, you may find that you have 2 records created for the same list entry. QuickBooks allows you to merge these duplicate entries. You perform the merge by editing one of the entries and changing its name to match the other exactly. The two entries will permanently become one, and all prior transactions with the merged list entry will reflect the change in name. You must be logged in as an admin user to merge list entries. Designating sales reps in QuickBooks. For many businesses, being able to track sales by a representative, or rep, is important, and QuickBooks provides a way to track this information by including sales rep list as one of the customer and vendor profile lists. Sales reps may be employees, partners in the business, or independent contractors to whom you issue 1099s. You will manage this list the same as you do other lists in QuickBooks, and you can choose to display this field on forms and reports. There are even preset reports that allow you to determine sales by rep. Entering bills. After you have set up your initial vendor list, you can begin to enter purchase transactions. In this section, you will learn to enter bills and use accounts payable, which is the account credited when bills are entered. When you enter a bill, you must specify a vendor because accounts payable and the vendor's subregister will be credited by the transaction. When entering bills, you need to decide if the expenditure is for an expense or for items you will add to your inventory, if you're tracking inventory, and enter it on the correct tab at the bottom. The importance of entering reference numbers and memos. When entering a bill, it's critical to enter reference information or the bill number in the reference number field and notes in the memo fields. The first memo field is for information that will print on a check created when you pay this bill. The second memo field is for internal use and can include any information that you want to track. The memo information displays in reports, is searchable, and can aid you if you are looking for a transaction. Passing on expenses to customers. When you enter a bill, you may be purchasing equipment or supplies or incurring a consultant's fee that you want to pass on to the customer. QuickBooks allows you to easily indicate which expenses are to be billed to a customer by providing a billable column in the Enter Bills window. When you make an item billable to a specific customer, the next time you invoice that customer, you will be asked if you'd like to add the outstanding billable time and costs to the invoice. Paying bills. When you have entered your bills, you will need to pay them in a timely manner. In QuickBooks, you use the Pay Bills window to debit accounts payable. The other half of the equation, the account that will be credited, depends on the account from which you withdraw funds or charge in the case of bill payment by credit card. When you've used the Enter Bills window, be sure to use the Pay Bills window to issue the payment, not the Write Checks window. Using the Write Checks window will not pay off the bill, thus you will expense the purchase twice and not clear out the entry in the accounts payable account. At the bottom of the Pay Bills window, you must make 3 important choices regarding your payment: payment date, payment method, and payment account. Payment date: make sure you select the date you want the payment to be reflected in your bank and accounts payable account. Payment method: you can choose how you will pay the bill. If you choose to pay by check, you must select whether you will print the check later in a batch, or assign it a check number immediately after choosing to pay selected bills. If you choose to pay by credit card, you must have a credit card account set up prior to selecting it from the payment method drop-down list. Payment account: you can select to pay the bill from any bank account you have set up. When you select an account, QuickBooks will show you the ending balance for the account so you can ensure you have enough money to pay the bill. Make sure to select the proper account, as it will be credited behind the scenes. Once you have completed the task of paying your bills, QuickBooks will display a payment summary window. There are 3 options available to you from this window: pay another bill, print checks, or close the window. Writing and printing checks. If you're using the cash basis of accounting, you don't have to use the QuickBooks Enter Bills and Pay Bills features, even though they're useful for managing cash flow. Instead, you can simply write a check to pay for your expenditures when they're due and expense them properly. Unlike the Enter Bills window, you can choose to create a check from any of the names lists: vendor, customer, job, employee, and other, as doing so does not affect accounts payable. As with the Pay Bills window, you must decide from which account to issue the check and whether to print the check or add it to a batch for later printing. Check to pay bills. When you open the Write Checks window and try to pay a vendor for whom there is an outstanding bill, QuickBooks will display a Check for Bills window. The default in this window is the Go to Pay Bills button, meaning if you tap Enter when you see the window appear, it will assume you want to pay a bill rather than write a check not associated with an outstanding bill. If you use the Enter Bills feature, you must use the Pay Bills feature for the bills you've entered. If you don't, your expenses will be overstated, funds will remain in accounts payable, and your reports will not reflect accurate amounts. Print check setup. To be sure every item prints in the proper location on the checks, you will need to align the checks to your printer. If you change your printer, remember to realign your checks. It's important to select the check style that matches the checks you've purchased, and to print a sample check to ensure proper alignment. Uploading a signature graphic file instead of manually signing each check is a great time saver, although caution should be applied if others have access to the Write Checks feature. Printing checks. When you choose to print your checks in the Pay Bills and Write Checks windows, QuickBooks will hold all of them in a queue until you're ready to print a batch of them. Vendor and Profit and Loss Reports. After you have recorded your vendor-related transactions, QuickBooks has many reports you can produce to view your data. To see all transactions grouped by vendor, there are 2 reports you can run. The Vendor Balance Detail Report, in the Vendors and Payables category, shows only those transactions affecting accounts payable, transactions entered and paid as bills. The Expense by Vendor reports, both summary and detail, found in the Company and Financial category, show transactions made by all payment methods. You've already learned about the basics of the Report Center. Now we'll travel through the other tabs to see what this center can really do for you. Once you've modified a report so it meets your needs, you can memorize it so you can easily reproduce it in the future. This tab of the Report Center groups all your memorized reports for easy access. Just as you can mark web pages as favorites, QuickBooks allows you to mark the reports you use regularly as favorites. These favored reports are easily accessed via the Favorites tab in the Report Center. Sometimes you may not remember the name of a report you just used that worked brilliantly for you. Have no fear because QuickBooks has a solution for that. The Recent tab in the Report Center shows the reports you've accessed recently, so you can easily produce them again. Contributed reports are specialized reports submitted by users and integrated into the Report Center. You can search for specialized reports by your industry type, and you can even rate a report for other users to show how valuable it is to you. If you are feeling ambitious, you can submit a custom report that you've created for others to use. Now that you have recorded both income and expenses, you will be able to run a meaningful profit and loss report. It's important to enter all income and expense transactions so income is matched to expenses for the period you are reporting. The profit and loss report will reflect all transactions that have affected income and expense accounts. The profit and loss report is also called an income statement. These terms can be used interchangeably. QuickBooks Graphs. In addition to the preset reports, QuickBooks provides 6 graphs. Income and expense. Net worth. Accounts receivable. Sales. Accounts payable. Budget versus actual. Graphs are accessible through the Reports option on the menu bar or via the Report Center. If you can't find a graph that suits your needs, you always have the option of exporting a report to Microsoft Excel and using the more advanced charting features offered there to analyze your data. The Graph toolbar displays different buttons depending on the graph created. Once you have created your graph, you can use the Graph toolbar to complete a variety of tasks, such as customizing your graph by date, choosing how to view your data, or printing your graph. Some graphs also have buttons below the pie chart that allow you to choose how to view the data at the bottom of the window, example, by income or by expense. The Quick Zoom feature is also available with graphs. You simply double-click on a portion of a graph, when you see the Quick Zoom pointer, to zoom in and see where the data comes from. That's all for today. Your next step is to review this chapter and get the exercises started. Thank you for participating in today's lesson. I will see you in our next session. And remember, if you don't know, askmarcio.com.